Awesome. So, yes, this is being recorded. So, if anyone can refrain from shouting any profanities out, not that you would do, but we're going to be using this recording to kind of give out to anyone who couldn't make it today, and also if you want to watch it back in case you're doing some work and you're only just listening in. So, I'd introduce. So we've got Iman with us today, and she's from the US, and she is our hormone specialist. She's going to break down everything based around hormones on how you can optimize them to get the best results out of what we're doing together, what you do in your spare time, just basically getting the best out of what you do. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pass you over, and Iman, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you all for having me all the way from the US. I know it's a little later your time, so thanks for joining this evening for you. It's the middle of the day here. So yeah, thank you for the introduction as well, Nick. The reason I feel qualified to talk about this is because I have had a slew of hormonal struggles myself, and I'm still kind of working through that. So at a young age, I'm only 25, and typically people don't run into hormonal issues until they're in their late 30s, or late 30s, 40s, and 50s. But I've had some complications with gut health problems and autoimmune conditions. So I've had to learn very quickly how to balance out my hormones. And so that's something that I take a look at with my clients as well. I would say my primary area of expertise is more on like foundational habits. That's kind of what got me into coaching is like, all right, how do I take the average person and get them to move their body in a meaningful way and make better food choices. And as I went through that, I realized that there were a lot of clients that actually were nailing the basics. They were, getting 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep every night. They were strength training 2 to 3 days a week. They were eating whole natural foods, hitting their protein target, and they just weren't getting any movement on the scale. And, that's obviously a very frustrating place to be because they're like, hey, what's going on? Like, I'm doing everything right and I'm just not seeing results. And so I had to kind of dive into that and be like, well, what's the problem here? So my own experience and then, working with clients on this as well, that's where I've started to learn more about hormones. So what I thought would be most helpful for you all, and correct me if you want to do it differently, but I'm going to give like a really brief spiel in the beginning, just a little bit about hormones and, some of the main hormones that we take a look at when it comes to, gaining muscle, losing fat, whatever your goals are. But then I'm going to open up the floor to all of the participants to ask questions. And if you all don't have any questions, I know that Nick polled his audience earlier this week, and we got some really good questions from people via social media. So I will answer those if no one else has any burning questions. But to start off, first of all, if it looks like I'm looking in a weird direction, my monitor's big and it keeps flipping everyone around. So that's what that is. But to start off, we want to take a look at, well, what are the main hormones in our body, right? So looking at them, we've got insulin, which is going to help, shuttle blood sugar around in our body. We've got our sex hormones. So for males, we're looking at primarily testosterone, although males do have estrogen as well. And for females, we're looking at estrogen. There are different types of estrogen, progesterone, and then testosterone as well. Females also have that. We then have hormones like leptin and ghrelin, which help us understand satiety signals within the body. So when you get hungry, usually there's an uptick in the production of a hormone called ghrelin. And when you are getting full, when you feed yourself, your body starts to produce a hormone called leptin. So there are so many different hormones that are working together in the body that can absolutely affect your mood, your sleep, your digestion, your fat loss, your metabolism, pretty much anything you could think of that goes on in your body. So that's one little point I wanted to make. The second point I wanted to make is that unfortunately, I don't know what it's like in the UK, but in the US, I feel that the general doctor's knowledge of hormones is pretty poor. And I don't say that to sound narcissistic or like I know it all. I certainly don't. That being said, most doctors, primary care doctors, is that what you call them there, Nick? Is it like a primary care physician or what do you call it?
So it's kind of we got like a general doctor.
Yeah, general. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And
Yeah.
then if you want to kind of go further, then yeah, you got more specialized.
Specialists, right. Yeah. So your general doctor, from what I've seen at least, does not have a lot of information or knowledge around hormones. So I see this a lot with women in particular, where they'll go to their doctor and they'll say, look, doc, like my hair is thinning, I'm gaining weight in my midsection, I'm tired all the time, and I have brain fog. Is something wrong with me? And the doctor looks back at them and says, oh no, you're just getting older, this is just a normal part of aging. You know your body, you can trust your body, and if you start to notice stuff like that, it's not normal, and it's not something that you have to shrug off or be gaslit into thinking that it's completely just part of the aging process. So I do want to make it clear that just because you are aging does not mean that you have to start feeling like crap all the time. So that was my little intro. With that being said, what questions do you all have? And if not, we will go into some of the questions that people had asked prior to the meeting.
As I said, feel free to ask anything in the chat group if it's based on your own hormones, or as I said, it could be to be with partners and just wanted to help them out, or understanding if you've had something that's come up before and you're not sure how to understand it, like on what can be used to improve it, then you might answer away. But if not, what we can do, as I said, I've got some preloaded questions and we can go into that. So yeah, we'll give it a few minutes if anybody's typing anything out. But
if someone wants to unmute as well, totally cool with that. I don't
yeah, feel
bite.
free. But what we can do, what I'll do is I'll ask the first one, and if anybody
Yeah.
has anything and whilst you're talking that comes to mind, then as I said, they can type it in. But so obviously we got, like you said, the people who are doing everything right. When you're sort of getting good sleep, they're getting good diet, they are, as I said, they're weight training, they having good exercise routine, but they're not seeing any sort of like results come back. Like, what are the most common signs that someone knows, like that they know that they're actually in a hormonal imbalance then?
Yeah, great question. So, first thing I typically see with females who are of the age where they're getting a regular cycle is that their cycle actually starts to be a little weird. And what do I mean by weird? So either you're getting a longer cycle, like longer times in between when you start to bleed, when you have your period. You are getting like a painful cycle. So maybe you're having like heavy bleeds, or you're noticing like crazy mood swings, or things just don't feel right. That's a very common sign for females. Another common sign for females, hair shedding. So we see that a lot with low thyroid and low progesterone, hair shedding, hair thinning. So if you're taking a shower and you look down at the drain and you're like, why is there an entire head of hair down there? That could be a sign of a hormonal imbalance. Dry skin, brittle nails, excuse me, as well. Those are usually signs of thyroid problems. Digestive issues are a big one. So if you notice that you're bloated, you're gassy, you're just feeling kind of just heavy all the time, maybe you have GERD or acid reflux, that's usually a sign. Mood changes are a huge one. Your hormones are very much responsible for your mood. In fact, I'll share a little bit of my own personal experience here, but for several years, I was diagnosed with PTSD that came up as depression and anxiety that would sort of alternate. And once I started learning more about my physical health and started tackling my hormones, those symptoms have drastically reduced. So, what I conclude is that there was some trauma that I've been through that I'm sure made this worse. But I believe that my low hormone levels actually really contributed to my depression. So, if you are feeling low, if you're feeling just not yourself, there could be something that caused that. God forbid you lose a family member or you lost your job or something. For sure, that would cause that. However, if it's sort of just out of nowhere and you can't really pinpoint it onto anything, it could be a hormonal issue. I'm trying to think what else I didn't go over. Chronic fatigue is a big one. So just feeling tired all the time, feeling tired when you go to sleep, but also feeling tired when you wake up. And then just general sort of moodiness is a sign as well.
You mentioned something in regards to like a thyroid, and in regards to like no thyroid is related to your metabolism. Is
Yes.
there ways of like knowing what affects like the metabolism? Is there hormones that affect the metabolism? As I said, we got going raise his hand, so we go through this one first. Is there something that you notice with hormones that you can affect your metabolism and how you can lose weight with that aspect? I think I've worded that.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, so your primary hormone that's going to be responsible for your metabolic rate is going to be your thyroid hormone. And so that's typically the one that we see. So, like I said, if you start to notice hair thinning, fatigue is a big one with people with thyroid issues. You will notice that fatigue, the brittle nails, excuse me, thinning hair. What else? Digestive issues are a huge sign of a thyroid problem. So yeah, absolutely, because your thyroid is literally what keeps your metabolic rate going. So if you're not producing enough of that hormone, which is very common, especially in women, you will be burning less calories. The other thing is, just in general, I'm not an expert in the science, I'll be honest about that, but I have noticed that when I have clients with just an imbalance in some way, shape, or form of hormones, I do see that they just have a harder time losing fat. So when I, deal with women who have really low progesterone, I find that they just hold on to water more easily. They're more irritable. They just have a harder time, whether it's an actual physical response in the body or it's that they feel like crap and then they are less likely to do the things that they need to do, right? You're not going to be super motivated to go to the gym if you can barely get yourself out of bed, right? And we know you need to be in the gym, strength training if you want to lose weight. So I think there's kind of a twofold answer to that question, where it's like, yes, there are physical things happening in your body, but then there are also the ways that that's going to affect your behavior.
Okay, awesome. Guy, did you want to come off the mic? You want to ask you a
Yeah, yeah,
question?
yeah. Yeah. So obviously hormones are complicated and
Yeah.
they interact with each other. So if you if you feel like you do have a hormone imbalance, how do you figure out which
Mm,
one it is that
great
could be
question.
messing you up? And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
how do you treat how would you go about treating that? Because something like if you're low on testosterone, I I don't really know, but could you get like a testosterone supplement that isn't steroids? I'm guessing. I don't know. So yeah, so
Yeah.
two parts. How do you know which hormone? And then
Yeah.
if you do know, how do you treat it?
That's a great question.
Great question. I love that. Absolutely. So, first thing I want to say is you can guess. So, you can take a look generally at your symptoms and say, okay, for example, if you're a male and you are fatigued all the time, you have no drive, your libido's really affected, and you have a low mood, we can look at that and say, you probably have low testosterone. However, what I've been taught by all of my mentors and everyone I respect is the following phrase, which is test, don't guess. And so, really, the best way to figure out what's going on with your hormones is to do tests. I would say the easiest way for the layperson to test hormones is through a blood serum test. So, you go and you get your blood drawn, and they're able to test for things like testosterone and estrogen and all that stuff. There are other tests you can do. For example, I know there are cortisol tests that you can do with saliva. There are certain urine tests that can test for hormones in males and females, I believe. But I would always recommend getting blood drawn and actually just seeing what that looks like. Now, there is a caveat to that, which is that when you get your blood drawn, that's a snapshot in time. So that's what, if you get it done at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, that's what your hormonal profile looked like at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. We don't know if your testosterone was down that day because you had a really poor night of sleep. We don't know if, you strength trained and so it was actually artificially high on your blood test. So there are certain parameters I would place around when I recommend a client go get tested. But that is typically if I suspect any sort of hormonal imbalance in my clients, I'm telling them to get tested immediately. I wish I could give you the panel that I give to my clients here, but it's not going to be worth anything for you all in the UK. But I don't know if you have connections to people that are able to do blood tests, but that's something that I try to figure out for my clients too, because, it's obviously an important part of things.
Yeah, there is. Over here we have like ones where you can get you send off like for testosterone testing. There is quite a lot of like loads of individual ones, but there's
Yeah.
also over here there's a lot of skeptical ones as well. There's I don't know if you've had it over there, but a lot to do
Yeah.
with allergy testing, and
Yes.
the way they're doing it is shocking.
Yes.
And a lot of people getting poor readings in regards of like thinking that they're gluten intolerant, but
Yes.
actually it's just a poor timing of to do with like how it's affected their body, like the way they're
Mhm.
getting it. I think one of them was just for your hair, a hair and something, but it was just like it's not. Um, it's hard to know which ones are legit. Like I said, if you're not in the know, you go on Google, it's very easy to just get misled by the top Google one. So,
Yeah, research.
but yeah, as a
Yeah.
side tangent, yes, there is testing that you can do over here. But
Yeah. So that's what I would recommend, finding a good provider and getting that done. And then with regards to your question about what do we do about it, that's going to be very specific to the person and what's causing their hormonal imbalance from the first place. So what a point I'd like to make is that I'm very big, and I'm sure Nick's the same way, on getting to the root cause of the problem, right? So let's say, for example, you have a problem with binge eating, right? Totally different topic, but it'll connect. If you have a problem with binge eating, well, there's a reason you're stuffing yourself with food all the time, right? Maybe you have a poor work-life balance and you're stressed all the time. Maybe you have poor relationships and that causes you to want to come home and eat. Maybe you're bored and you don't have hobbies and you just eat a lot, right? So we would have to figure out, well, why is this happening in the first place? Same exact thing with your hormones, right? So if I've trained mostly females, but I have trained a few male clients as well. If I have a male client that comes to me and says he gets horrible sleep, he's incredibly stressed out at his job. This may or may not be a real client. He's super stressed out, doesn't get good sleep. He has to use marijuana to fall asleep at night, and he doesn't strength train very heavy. Well, I'm going to look at that and say, okay, I can tell you real easily why your testosterone is low. You're getting crappy sleep. You're not strength training. Blah 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 blah. However, I might have someone who has a genetic predisposition to be low in testosterone, which, believe it or not, exists. Or I have someone who's doing everything right, but they just simply cannot get better sleep. They have, a newborn or something like that. That person, I might say, hey, we need to look into potentially some supplementation. But from what I've gathered from talking to, male colleagues who are experts in this field, is that at a certain age, it seems that TRT is the way to go for a lot of males. The world we live in, unfortunately, is one that seems to be quite testosterone suppressing, with the amount of microplastics that we are exposed to, just the pollutants in the air. We have a lot of what are called endocrine disrupting chemicals in the environment now, and those can really suppress the production of testosterone in males. And so, unfortunately, things are kind of working against you all these days, and sometimes TRT is what's needed. Hopefully, I answered all of that.
on that, in regards to the supplements, like and the studies, there is zero legal supplements that will show significant difference in boosting testosterone. So
Yeah.
if you're going, even if like you could go, so Holland and Barrett over here, Iman is a health supplement store. They will have a whole rack that will say testosterone boosting. Like it doesn't do it, unfortunately. Like, even though Holland and Barrett are a very well known brand, like. They are just there. They will make money from selling a supplement. They may have like one study out of 100 that shows like a
Yeah.
positive response from it, and they will stick that on the front of the label saying this will increase your testosterone. But the increase can be like from zero point 0.1 up to 0.2. Because it's an
Yeah.
increase, they will say that, and it will just stick that on the label. So
Yeah.
if you are, this is like real low in testosterone, and as I say, you could get that tested. Then yes, TRT and testosterone replacement therapy would be a way forward for that. But I've also just I've got a question. You touched on it, but I've actually got a message through my WhatsApp because someone doesn't know how to use the chat, which is totally fine.
That's
But
so fine.
they turned around and they said, "Can you balance out hormones when there's things out of control, like sleep and the amount of stress, like when you've got kids? So when you have low sleep and you are feeling really stressed, what are things that you can implement to help with your hormones?"
Yeah, great question. So sometimes there are just circumstances in life that make it really hard. I just signed on a client today who is a bartender on the weekends, and she gets horrible sleep on the weekends, and she has to work that job. Like, that's part of her income, so she can't switch that around. And so, I know that on those days she's going to get crappy sleep and we have to work around it. First thing I would say is do what you can. So a phrase I give to my clients a lot is focus on what you can do, not what you can't do. So you may not be able to get a perfect 8 to 9 hours of quality sleep every night. You may not be able to be this Zen monk on the top of a mountain meditating all day long. But what can you do to improve your sleep, right? If you've got young kids, can you maybe nap at the same time that they nap? Can you work on sleep training? If you're stressed out, right? And I don't have kids yet, so maybe I'm just talking out my butt here, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I would try to see, like, am I doing everything I can to be able to remedy these problems? Because I'm about to tell you other stuff you can do, and maybe potentially we look into supplementation, but those are going to be big issues. It is possible to fix some of the imbalance. However, you're not going to walk around with perfectly balanced hormones if you are stressed to the nines and not sleeping. So I would look at the source of stress. I would look at the source of the lack of sleep and see if there's anything you can do about it. There are ways to manage your stress, even in a horribly stressful situation. Let's say your job stresses you the F out, right? Maybe you can't do anything about the job itself, but you can do stuff about, how do I respond to that? Am I doing some breath work? Am I doing things every day that bring me joy? Am I talking to someone about this, right? So that's part one. Part two, yes, there are things that you can do. Again, this is going to come down to the specific hormonal imbalance, right? So, for example, if I get a woman and she's low in progesterone, which is one of the sex hormones, I know that there are certain foods that can help boost progesterone, right? So healthy carbs are going to do that, but they're not going to do it as much as getting better sleep and trying to manage your stress, right? So, again, I am very much in the business of communicating to the average person and not being super scientific about things, but the way I've been taught is that when your stress is high, you basically, quote unquote, zap through your hormones. So what that means is you're burning through your hormones when your stress is high. Like, your body is freaking out, it's burning through its hormones, it's burning through its nutrients. So, could you put out a fire with a squirt gun? Sure. Would you rather have a fire hose? Absolutely. Hopefully that answered that question. But if there's more nuance to that, or a specific example, I'm happy to answer in further detail.
I've got another one which I feel like maybe like 90% of the people would. What's your thoughts on alcohol? And how does it affect? And how does it affect fat loss? How does it affect your hormones? Like,
Yeah.
if someone is super stressed out and having a drink of alcohol, this could be like part two of the question.
Yeah.
If that helps them de-stress, is it actually de-stressing them, or is it
Yeah.
causing more issues? What's your
Uh,
thoughts?
this is the part where everyone's going to hate me. So first things first, I'm going to put this out there, and I'm open about this, so this isn't some like shocking situation to talk about, but I am the daughter of an alcoholic. So I do have a slight bias against alcohol. Now, I know that, drinking culture is obviously a big thing here in the US, but in the UK as well. So I'm not going to say I'm completely anti-alcohol all the time. I don't think that you need to be, completely sober and never take a drink. You want to go out after work and have a drink with your girls or with your friends at the pub, that's completely acceptable, right? Where it becomes a problem is actually part two of that question, Nick, where we're using this as a way to sort of disassociate and soothe these uncomfortable feelings that we're having. So no, it does not actually bring down stress in your body. In fact, it boosts stress in your body because it is a toxin, and that sounds dramatic, but it is true. Your body and your liver has to work really hard to get it out of the system. So it is quite a stressful substance to be putting in your body. It will affect your hormones, absolutely. Really, the connection there is that it's going to affect your gut health, which will affect your hormones, actually. So when your gut health is off, believe it or not, there's a very strong connection between a healthy gut and healthy hormones. And so if you are drinking repeatedly, a drink or two every single day to help you get to sleep, you are severely weakening the gut line, the barrier of your gut, the gut lining. And this can absolutely affect your ability to produce hormones. So I see this quite often. When you take a drink to get to sleep, you may be knocked out. However, you are not getting good quality sleep. It's actually completely destroying your ability to get deep sleep, which is the part of sleep that we get that helps restore our body physically. So, unfortunately, from a hormonal standpoint, alcohol is pretty detrimental. What do I personally think is a safe amount of alcohol per week? I would say 1 to 2 drinks, which might be way less than what a lot of people are drinking. But that is what I recommend to my clients. So, I understand if you want to leave and never follow me or speak to me again, but don't kill the messenger.
No, 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 no. As I said, like, I think that was a fair enough answer. There was no kind of judgmental or anything about that. Like I know a few people like to have a drink, and that is something that they enjoy doing. But like I said,
Yeah.
as long as it's used in a way that you're not kind of masking something in regards
Yes.
to it, then yeah. Guy, yeah, you raise your hand. You got another question?
Yeah, so you touched on the gut. Is it worth taking like stuff that improves gut health? So, or what's it
Mm.
like?
Microbiome.
Yes,
Yeah.
is that stuff worth it? Because I've read a lot about it.
Yeah.
Well, no, I've seen a lot about it, I should say,
Yeah.
and and people have been putting it quite high as something that's important. Would you recommend that that's something that can help with hormones? Or is
Absolutely,
it
100%. So here's the caveat I have about gut health. So gut health is another thing I've struggled with profoundly and I'm still working through. I think the problem is we're seeing a lot of stuff on gut health, on TikTok and on Instagram and all that stuff. And there are all these just sort of blanket statements like everyone should take a probiotic and everyone should have this supplement for gut health. And it is just like everything else, it's very, very individualized. So I have some clients who I do recommend probiotic rich foods to, like yogurt and kefir and fermented foods like sauerkraut and kimchi and stuff like that. There are some clients who maybe have bacterial overgrowths, and that type of food would actually make them feel like crap. So, yes, you should absolutely be taking care of your gut health. Some general information that I can give that is pretty safe for almost everyone is to eat enough fiber every single day. So for every 1,000 grams, or excuse me, 1,000 calories you eat, we recommend about 10 grams of fiber. So if you're eating 2,000 calories a day, you should probably be getting about 20 grams of fiber. So fiber is typically good. Having a diverse diet, I think something that I'm certainly guilty of, and a lot of people on their weight loss journey are guilty of, is we find our safe foods, the ones that make us feel good and help us lose weight or help us build muscle, and then we just eat the shit out of those. Excuse my language, right? But we eat them all the time. And that is great in terms of helping you hit your macros, but you maybe are not feeding these different flora in your gut. And so diversity and choices of foods is a really good thing to be mindful of when it comes to gut health. And then stress and gut health are very much linked. So, you know, trying to manage your stress is huge because if you are eating in a stressed out state, you're basically putting your body in this spot where particles of food that should be in your gut actually end up leaking out of the gut into your bloodstream. This is a phenomenon called leaky gut syndrome, and it can cause a whole slew of issues, including food intolerances, bloating, gas, all sorts of stuff there. So I would say chew your food thoroughly. Make sure you sit down at the table and eat, and don't be doing 3,000 things while you're trying to eat your food. Eat enough fiber and try to consume a variety of different foods. Those are my three, like, I feel comfortable giving this to everyone type piece of advice.
Yeah, so like you were saying, like if you have uh certain meals on certain days, I'm very, as I said, very known to having a strict routine. When I go to the food shop, I pick up the
Yeah,
same things.
me
Like
too.
what I like to do, as I have set this as a challenge for like some of my clients sometimes, is try something new. Like if you go in the
Mhm.
supermarket, you could try a different fruit.
Yep.
I tried a pomelo fruit the other day. I don't rate it. Wasn't my favorite. It's
Yeah.
basically a giant grapefruit, and yeah, it wasn't for me. But I tried it. For
Right.
my gut got that little bit of different bacteria to kind of get in there. Like the more you can vary it, like the better it's going to kind of reinforce that. What's your thoughts on multivitamins?
Oh, another really good question. I think unfortunately most of them are garbage. So a lot of times, companies are putting in forms of these or of these vitamins and nutrients that aren't really absorbable by the body, and so you just end up peeing a lot of it out. And again, I'm really big on what do you need? What does your body need? So just throwing a multivitamin at your body isn't necessarily the best decision. I don't think for most people it will harm them, but I much rather, test and figure out what does this person need, what are they deficient in, and how can I give them a targeted supplement regime rather than just taking a bunch of stuff.
I've also got some more questions coming.
Yeah,
So
great.
in regards to this one's probably more targeted at women, but how does hormones affect body fat storage?
Yeah, great question. So, there are a lot of different things that could be going on here. We'll start with the basic one, just because I think a lot of women, and I don't want to make a generalization or prescribe anything. I'm obviously not a doctor, but I think a lot of women are struggling with a sluggish thyroid and they don't realize it. So that's a really common one where, if your thyroid is sluggish, again, your metabolic rate slows down, which means it takes less calories to be over your daily needs, right? And that's just a fancy way of saying it's really easy to overeat. And so if you start to notice a lot of just rapid fat gain out of nowhere and you're tired and you just feel off, could be your thyroid. Um, we have certain hormones, believe it or not, that produce certain like deposits of fat for lack of a better term. And so a lot of times when I see women who are estrogen dominant, meaning they have too much estrogen and not enough progesterone, and we can confirm this with labs and symptoms as well, I will see weight gain in the hips, in the butt, in the thighs, in the stomach. That's another place where cortisol, which is our stress hormone, is often, the shining star. Is if you have an imbalance of cortisol, usually too much of it, you will start to notice fat gain in the stomach and the thighs and the butt area as well. So yeah, if you notice weird kind of like, I've never gained fat there before, why is that happening? It could be a hormonal imbalance. And this is something very common we see in those premenopause and menopausal years because hormones naturally take a dip as you get older.
And now I've got a question for the opposite sex. So for
Yes.
guys, if someone is low on testosterone, how can
Yeah.
that affect their body, and what are some factors that they can do? Well, can it be reversible,
Yeah.
and what can they do?
Yeah, great question. Actually, the couple of males I have worked with have all been low in testosterone. So, what we see is that with excess body fat, excess adipose tissue, we do often see testosterone is low. And so, the number one thing I would recommend for a client who thinks they are low in testosterone is to, if they are overweight, to try to get their weight under control, right? So, it's kind of a double-edged sword here as well because if you're low in testosterone, you're more likely to store body fat. So, the two kind of go hand in hand there. As the second part of your question being, what do you do to reverse it? I'm just going to give the basics. Let's assume that it's not something that needs to be addressed with TRT. Get 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep every single night. Strength train. I would say your full body 2 to 3 days per week. I've heard from other men, and Nick, you might know this as well, that heavier lifting tends to be better for promoting more testosterone boosts versus pump style 15 to 20 rep
Yeah.
range type lifting. um I've heard as well some kind of less traditional advice of just like, do you have a purpose in life? Do you have drive? Like, what gets you out of bed? What makes you feel good? There's a correlation between like your mood and your psyche and what happens in your physical body as well. So those are a couple things. Some of the more fringe stuff I've heard is like red light therapy can be really helpful. Cold plunging, I think, can help with hormone regulation as well. So, again, those are a couple fringe things, but the basics: sleep, stress management, hitting your protein goal, trying to manage your blood sugar, so eating balanced meals. Those are the things that are those are gonna be the biggest rocks here.
Right. So, um, I've probably gone over this before, but we've mentioned sleep so many times, and if anybody is here, someone like we've gone through the basics, like what are what you would say is like the foundational things, and then what is maybe like an aid, a supplement. I know it's like probably like the last 5% what we want to be focusing on. What would you do to help someone who improves sleep, and also what are factors that they should be avoiding, as I said before, going to bed, like
Yeah.
what they might be doing that could affect their sleep?
Yeah, I love this topic because I feel like I'm a princess when it comes to sleep. It is something I protect with all my life. I absolutely love my sleep and I need a lot of it. So, let's start with the general piece of advice I give is make sure you actually have a nighttime routine. So, many of you probably have a morning routine. You get up, you brush your teeth, you wash your face, you make your breakfast, you drive your kids to school, whatever, but most people don't have a nighttime routine. So I like to recommend that clients establish a nighttime routine. So it starts with understanding what time you're going to get to bed every night. Yeah, and every night you want to try to get to bed at the same time every night, whether it's a Friday night or a Tuesday night. You do want to try to get to bed at the same time every night. This is going to train your body to get into a natural rhythm, and this is going to naturally set your circadian rhythm. So think about how you feel on a Monday morning versus maybe a Wednesday morning. Monday morning, everyone hates it, right? Why? You stayed up super late every single night of the weekend. Your circadian rhythm's all off. And so when your alarm goes off at 6 in the morning on Monday, you'd rather die than get out of bed, right? Because your hormones are, or excuse me, your sleep is all messed up, right?
Stop telling us off.
Yeah, right. So, and believe me, I'm not perfect. I don't get up at 6 a.m. on Saturdays, but I do try to regulate it as much as I can. So it starts with getting in bed at the same time every night. Then I try to work backwards from there. So there's a common rule, and I didn't come up with this. I've heard this from multiple people in this space. It's the 3-2-1 rule. So 1 hour before bed, we're going to try to dim the lights, turn off our phones, our tablets, our computers, and do things that bring you joy or that bring down stress. That might be reading, that might be, doing a crossword puzzle, knitting, I don't know, whatever you're into. You want to do that stuff an hour before bed, and have all screens and devices off. So there is a light that comes out of your screen that is called blue light. It actually is the same light that comes out of the sun. So when you are viewing a screen at night, your body does not understand the difference between this blue light is coming from a computer or this blue light is coming from the sun. So basically, you're sending a signal to your body, hey, it's still light outside, which is going to suppress your body's production of another key component here for sleep, which is melatonin. If you don't have enough melatonin, you will not be able to fall asleep and stay asleep. Okay. So 1 hour before bed, we're putting our screens away. 2 hours before our bed, ideally, we're going to stop drinking any liquids of any kind. That's going to prevent you from having to get up at 2:30 in the morning and go take a piss, right? And then 3 hours before bed, we like to stop eating. Digesting is a hard process for your body. In fact, you burn a lot of calories just from digesting your food. This is called the thermic effect of food, right? And so we don't want your body having to work hard to digest food while you're asleep. If it's doing that, it's not going to be getting you into a deep sleep. So those are a couple things that I think is just helpful. That 3-2-1 rule. It's easy to remember. Now, a couple of other things that I do. You want to make sure that the temperature in your home is as cool as you can afford to keep it, and as you can take it, right? So here in the US, we pretty much have AC everywhere. I know it's different sometimes in the UK,
Yeah,
but
it's winter here. Everyone's debating whether to turn their heating on or not.
yeah. So I would recommend save some money and don't turn your heating on. Leave your house cold and just bundle up in your blankets. Because you definitely want a cold temperature to sleep in. If you do not get cold enough at night, your body will not get into a deep sleep of rest. Your heart rate cannot lower if it's too hot. And so if your heart rate doesn't lower, you will not get deep sleep. I recommend sleeping with an eye mask and earplugs in. If you have young kids that, might be crying or something at night, maybe not the best decision, but I have the privilege of not having anyone I'm responsible for besides myself. So, I've put in earplugs, I've got a mask on. I actually do mouth taping as well. I would recommend talk to your doctor about that. If you have sleep apnea or something, that's not good. But what that does is you tape your mouth and it forces you to breathe through your nose rather than your mouth, which actually helps you control your heart rate and your breath a little bit better as well. Um, Alcohol before bed is definitely a big no-no. Again, it's going to affect your deep sleep. Try to cut that off as far away from bed as you possibly can. So if you go out after work and you have a drink at 5 and you're not going to bed till 10, that should be okay. But if you're drinking at 9:30 and going to bed at 10, you're not going to get good quality sleep. So those are the foundations. I think I covered all of it. Yeah, I don't think, make sure your room is dark as well. Turn off all the lights, close the blinds. You can get blackout curtains too. The more fringe stuff or supplements, I would say, why aren't we getting good sleep? What's causing that? So if it's stress related, can we maybe take a supplement that might help with stress, which would be something like ashwagandha, maybe L-theanine. There's a lot of different companies that make formulations that have multiple compounds in them that can help reduce stress. Melatonin, excuse me, is one that a lot of people go to. I've just seen people abuse the dosage. You really don't need that much melatonin. I believe what most people consider to be safe and effective is about 2.5 milligrams. And a lot of these supplements are going to be 5 to 10 grams, which is crazy. That's a lot. Yeah.
Just
So
to knock you out.
yeah, it'll knock you out, but you'll wake up in the middle of the night and be all disoriented and everything. A really basic one I like, especially for women, because this will help with your thyroid health too. By the way, thyroid health matters for men, but I've seen it affect women a lot more commonly, is chamomile tea. So some chamomile tea before bed with a little bit of honey, maybe a little bit of milk. It's going to restore your glycogen stores in your body and help prevent any sort of drop in blood sugar in the middle of the night, which could potentially wake you up. And chamomile is a known stress fighter.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we haven't touched on this yet, but it's massive in regards to the world of fat loss, and it is insulin. Now,
Yeah.
what is your thoughts on if someone is having a balanced diet, but they're worried about their insulin, and does it really make a massive difference in regards to fat loss?
Yeah.
And what are some measures they can do to kind of balance it out, or if they even need to really worry about it?
I would say, to be fully honest with you, I don't have my clients start worrying about insulin unless they get their labs drawn and we see that they are pre-diabetic or they have a high insulin or high A1C. So your A1C is your 3-month average of your blood sugars, basically. It's like a calculation that they use. And if your blood sugars are constantly high, you are going to have a hard time burning fat because your body's constantly going to be worried about shuttling that sugar into different places via insulin. I do think that there's been a big movement in obsessing over tracking your blood sugar, and there's all these Instagram accounts with it. And oh my God, this spiked my blood sugar. And I honestly think people are stressing out over it more than they need to. The general advice I would give is try to eat meals that are naturally blood sugar balancing. So how do you do that? Include healthy fats, fiber, protein at every meal. If you have those 3 things, unless you're eating a food that you are allergic or intolerant to, it's unlikely to spike your blood sugar. So yeah, a scoop of ice cream is going to spike your blood sugar, right? It's actually less likely to spike your blood sugar if you eat it alongside a good source of protein and healthy fats. So, there are different supplements people take and different measures people go through. Some people really like berberine as a supplement for blood sugar. There is clinical evidence to show that that is effective. You can also save your money and take a 5-minute walk after you eat because that's going to lower your blood sugar. You can also do some calf raises, standing calf raises, and that will lower your blood sugar after eating, believe it or not. Another thing that will really drive blood sugar up is stress or a poor night of sleep. So we start to see these patterns of the things that become most important for us. But hopefully that answered that question.
Yeah, that was awesome. As I said, like if anyone's got any questions, feel free to ask. We've only got a little bit of time left. I've got a few more which I could keep throwing at you. As I said, like
Yeah,
you've been amazing
go for
so
it.
far. But with when it comes to oh, completely gone blank. No, sorry.
It's okay. The sip of water knocks it out.
Get tired out. Oh, Guyan's raised his hand. He's saving me a second here. I'll go try
There you
and.
go.
So we keep coming back to stress,
Mm-hmm.
but from what I know about stress, uh, like just you can kind of power through it by giving yourself a goal, like you said, and actually working out or walking or being
Mm-hmm.
active. So
For
in
sure.
some ways, so if you have a hormone imbalance, say, it's just keeping on a good way to almost self-correct without having to do anything. So like just
Yeah.
continue on with the process. Can that actually help in and of itself? Just
So
going
yes,
along.
that's first of all, I like that question a lot. Yes and no. So there are 2 components to stress. There is the actual stress and in your body, and then there's the way you perceive it. So, for example, if I got a horrible night of sleep because I am in a long distance relationship and I'm seeing my partner for the first time in 3 months, and I'm super excited, and that's what's kept me up, that is a stress on my body. That poor sleep is a stress on my body. But the way I'm perceiving it is I was just so excited, it's not a big deal. If I got a horrible night's sleep because, God forbid, I just got laid off of my job, that's horrible. That's a stress on your body, and it's a psychological stress. So the reason I bring that up is to make the following point, which is just because we are not perceiving something as a stress does not mean it is not a stress on our body, right? So I think that's something important to understand. So in that sense, no, you can't just power through it. There are actual measures you would need to take. Some people are of a mindset that nothing stresses them out. They're just hard workers and they don't care what happens. They're just going to keep on keeping on, which is helpful because you're not perceiving this stress, but that does not mean that there is no stress on your body. I'll give you a good example. I train a couple of clients who live out in the Midwest here in the States. They're farmers, and the daughter works a 9 to 5, then goes after her 9 to 5 and works with the cows and, does all the farm chores, and then has to get up and do it all again the next day. And her mentality is she's just a hard worker and she just pushes through things. But it definitely shows up in her body, right? She's sore a lot, she's extra tired, there's stress on her body. So you can separate the two. They may they may not exist. One might be less dramatic than the other in the sense that some people may not perceive things to be as stressful, and that certainly helps. I'm not saying you should go freak out about things. That's not going to help at all. But you do have to understand that there are going to be physical stressors on your body.
Awesome.
That's a good question, though. Yeah.
So let's. I'm going to ask us for some. As I say, you say you go for like the foundational things you kind of covered with sleep, but what are things that you can do to manage your stress? Like, what are your kind of go-to, like in as a sort of options, what you would choose?
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll go with that one first.
Yeah. So actually one of the number one things you can do to manage your physical stress is to sleep. That's where you're going to recover. So the two just go hand in hand. I will beat that dead horse forever because I think so many people don't take it seriously enough. Um, I think that this is going to sound really silly, but again, I'm speaking from a place of experience. If you hate your life, it's going to be really hard to be successful in anything. And so, are you happy in life? And if not, what can we do about that? Like, is there a lack of joy in your life? Can we find ways to bring joy back in your life, right? Joy might be you take a little extra time to have your coffee in the morning. You put on your headphones and you walk around the block and you listen to your favorite music. You call a friend, you cook a new recipe, you read a book, right? Things that maybe you liked doing in your childhood that you've completely neglected since you became a mom or a dad or a husband or a wife or whatever. So joy is a really good way to combat stress because it takes the edge off, really, right? In my opinion, the opposite of stress is joy. And from a physiological standpoint, the opposite of stress is relaxation or recovery. But from a psychological standpoint, I think that's a huge thing. Um, Now, if you are somebody that tends toward anxiety, like I do, physically bringing down stress in the body is really important. A couple ways you can do that are through breath work. There are a lot of different courses on YouTube and different apps and whatnot where you can do certain types of breath work. I like box breathing and 4-7-8 breathing. You guys can look that up after the call and kind of go through those. There is things like walks in nature. Those are huge in bringing down stress. There's actually, again, I'm going to butcher the science, but there's some sort of ion that gets released from like trees and the ocean and stuff like that that physically brings stress down in your body. So if you've ever taken a swim in the ocean and you're like, damn, I feel really good, that actually there is an actual compound that's causing that. Just spending time with people you love, practicing gratitude. This morning on my Instagram story, I put like a little note and I said, choose one person to reach out to today and tell them that why they mean so much to you and that you love them. And little things like that just really kind of counteract those stress hormones in your body.
Is something called grounding, I believe.
Groundy, yes, is a good one too. Yep.
That's
So that's literally just sitting on the ground, sitting on the ground outside, or at the ocean. Again, there's certain electrical charges and ions that come from the earth that will really actually make you feel more present. Even just going outside and putting your feet in the grass can really ground you.
um. So I did have another one more question.
Yeah.
It was to do with oh, come on, what is it? I keep on
This one,
going to say it, but
forever evading.
it's near 9 o'clock. So as everyone here, appreciate everyone tuning in.
Yeah.
If
Thank
anyone
you.
has any questions, as I said, please feel free to ask them. Um, but I can't remember it. So if it comes to us wrapping it up, then as I said, like we'll call it at that. But I've tried to ask everything what I can think, what someone might think of. Um, we've covered sleep and how to, as I said, improve it, things that you can take to help sleep. We've gone over stress, as I said, like those are two massive factors. In regards, we've gone over body fat storage and how your body's affected with that. And yeah, I think they are key ones. What we've gone over, like hopefully this is brought value to say you guys here.
Yeah.
Again, Iman, thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
If you've got anything you want to close or like, oh, actually, you've got a podcast, so if you want to tell us a
Yes.
little bit about that, and or if you've got your own Facebook group where people can find you, or if they have any questions, I know as like I'm here, but also you're a fountain of knowledge too, and some people
Thank
just
you.
want to ask other people and get different opinions, because I think that's a great way of learning, is getting more than just one opinion. And that's sadly what kind of like the doctor's world is. You kind of get one and you're like, "Oh, I'm not sure about that." So,
Yeah.
but anyway, I'm rambling now. So, Marn, where can people find you? And
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, exactly what you mentioned. I have a podcast called The Mindset Diet. So like I said, I talk a lot about mindset. I talk a lot about stress management. This most recent one that is coming out tomorrow is about how to manage your time, because I feel like a lot of people struggle with that too. So that is where you can get to know me most intimately. I think I'm pretty open on that podcast, and most episodes are anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour long. So, you're getting a good dose of me if you aren't tired of me already after today. After that, I'm on, everything: Facebook, Iman Whyte. You can always email me. I can send that to you, Nick. If people have more personal questions that they don't want to ask via social media, you can email me. But yeah, I would say the podcast, and then my Instagram is at built by balance _ Iman. So I'll send you all the links so you can send it out to everyone if anyone's interested.
awesome, awesome,
Yeah.
wicked. All right, yeah, it is. What time is it over there where you are?
It's like 4 p.m. So I'm wrapping up my work day, and then I have an in-person client. I only have one in-person client. She lives like 5 minutes from me. So she comes and trains out of my garage every week. So
Oh,
we're
nice.
doing that this evening. Yeah. I look forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, it is 9 o'clock here, and
Yeah.
some of us are little kiddies as well, so we're probably all drained and should be getting to sleep. So,
Yeah.
we'll take everything that you've given us on board. Once again, everyone who is here and tuned in late, either whether you are just been listening in or you've been taking notes whatsoever, but thank you all so much. And yeah, we'll call it at that. Iman, what I'll do is I'll send you a little quick message after. And yeah, let's
Thank you for your time.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank
Thank you
you.
so much. You guys are a great audience. Appreciate it.